Hey guys, and welcome back to Warhammer Total War. And boys dear, do I have a battle heavy episode for you this time. The first thing we're going to be doing here is assaulting the walls of Marienburg with Karl Franz's army, and straight after that we're going to have to fight at least one, although possibly two pitched battles in order to take Gorsel and wipe out Marienburg's remaining military presence on the campaign map. Before we jump into the siege, you may notice that 3 turns have passed since the end of the last episode, with the main change being that Marienburg's primary army has now been bottled up outside this ruined Orcish settlement that they raised last time, but that's entirely due to the ambush battle that we fought at the end of the last episode, and the fact that I rode down as many of their fleeing troops as I could as well. So when the remnants of Marienburg's main army fled from that battle, I immediately put Marienburg under siege with Karl Franz's army, where we've been building up some siege engines for the last couple of turns. We've also got our smaller army that we had moved up to the walls of Marienburg in case we need to relieve some of Karl Franz's troops after the siege. And our treasury is pretty much non-existent at the minute because we've been continuing to build up Reichland as much as possible. I'm not going to talk about buildings though at the minute because we've spent quite a lot of time in the last few episodes on that. There are 2 little agents down here that Marienburg have who have been constantly harassing my smaller army. And I've got to say, it's not a mechanic I'm terribly fond of, where some baldy, bearded, eye patch wearing fuck can just slip into my camp and kill off like 200 of my troops in one go somehow. Not to mention slip out again then without being noticed. Anyway, we're going to commence the assault on the walls of Marienburg now. And if you've been watching previous episodes where I was talking about the lore of the city, you'll know that we're going to be walking into some opulent mock Venetian metropolis filled with glorious piazzas and canals, and I don't really know how we're going to get all our soldiers over the canals. I guess we'd better requisition some gondolas, eh? When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza... Wait a minute. What the fuck is this? This isn't Venice. Just where are the gondolas, the canals, the piazzas, the chewy cocoa beans? They're not here. Of course they're not here, because this is Creative Assembly we're talking about, who have shown recently, especially, Rome 2, I'm looking at you, that they are willing to cookie cutter entire factions, cultures, settlements, building styles, the lot, in order to save themselves the trouble of having to make distinctive stuff. So Marienburg architecturally looks no different to any other Empire settlement in the provinces. And yet, they've still had time to somehow make every single mountain into a skull? Which I don't understand in the slightest. This isn't fucking He-Man. And also add these weird little balloon things to what looks like just about every building. What the fuck is that about? And that, of course, is also to say nothing about how uncomplicated and dull sieges seem to have become in this game. Now, I fully understand that a new player approaching a game like Shogun 2 and having to defend or attack a castle that is so intricate and detailed that when viewed from above it looks like a drawing of Idi Amin eating an orange with a pair of chopsticks. I understand that's going to be daunting, but that's not really an excuse to dumb things down as much as they have here. So we don't need to spend a lot of time going through the planning of this, because our choices for assaulting the town are we can approach from the front, or we can approach from the front. Or if we're feeling really adventurous, we can approach from the front. There's only 2 strategic choices I'm going to make here in terms of our deployment, and both of them sadly emanate from how weird and broken sieges in this game are. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that our towers are lined up and are both facing the same section of wall. And that's only because defensive bastions or defensive towers in this game can shoot me from within our own deployment zone, no matter how far back I go. Meaning that if we bunch our towers together, there's less chance of one or both of them getting destroyed before it gets to the wall. Whereas, of course, if we put them much further apart, the chances are his defensive towers, as overpowered as they are, even with just shooting arrows, will take down both my siege towers before they get there. Now the downside to that is of course that there's a danger of our troops bunching up quite considerably, especially as the ram is also going towards this gatehouse section of the walls. But I'm hoping with the right level of micromanagement we can get out of that becoming too much of a problem. And then the second tactical decision I'm taking, I don't know why I said strategic before because it's completely wrong. The second tactical decision I'm making is that I've taken Luther Huss and Karl Franz off their war horses prior to this, so that I can send them up the walls on ladders in order to attack their troops directly. This is another reason why I think the sieges are broken, because heroes will perform so admirably against whole bodies of troops that I can send one man up a ladder as a one-man wrecking ball during this siege. His defences on the walls mean nothing once he gets up there, and there's really nothing the AI can do about that either. Anyway, ranting aside, let's take ourselves a town, shall we?
Yes, sir! Yes, General! Swordsman! By Ulrich's wrath! Moving out, sir! March as one! Ready for war! Ready for war!
See some of his troops forming already. I assume they'll shift about on the walls a bit though. Let's get Luther Huss. That is, I've just targeted Fireball McGee to go up the walls, which I'm not really sure of. I'll send him up after the Emperor. But that should be everything moving into position. How does this look from their perspective? That's daunting enough, isn't it? And what about our perspective of this? Equally daunting in a different way. So, I mean, for all the bashing I'm doing of this game, there are things going for it. It does look pretty damn good, let's face it. At this point I should really be watching which troops are getting targeted and stuff and how much they're losing, but I'm much more interested in just watching the spectacle, to be honest. So, can we spot Luther Huss? I can't see him there, I know he's out on the left somewhere. I can see our wizard, and just about see the Emperor over there too, you can see his plume. We are getting pretty close to the walls though, so let's go back to the overview for this. He's got a crossbowman to run so we can start giving fire onto the walls to his crossbow units. It's good, the Emperor's still making his way up slowly. I don't want to run either him, well, run Luther Huss for a little bit. But I want the siege towers to engage first, if possible. So that one's at 80% damage, the other one 58. We made the right decision anyway by bunching them up together. And it looks like they've both made it. Damaged, but intact. Oh, this is a crossbow unit that my swordsmen are going to be running out onto. That'll be fun. Whoops, sorry, I was trying to get you a good angle, but that tower has just decided that the camera's going to spaz out like mad. So we're up and onto the walls on both sides. The ram is doing its work against at 30%. Let's get the Emperor and Luther Huss to run now, but they're out of a fair bit of the danger. Let's also get Fireball McGee up there too. Hopefully he can send some fireballs raining down from the ramparts. Alright, through the gates, so this swordsman unit we're going to push directly in. We're also going to bunch up our other swords units. And this looks really counterintuitive, it looks crazy. But if I was to just send them all on a move order in here, the game would decide for some reason that I want some of them to go up ladders and up towers and all sorts, which is daft considering the gate's open, but there you go. And so move our crossbows up a bit in anticipation of having them getting up onto the ramparts too when they can. And so move our Reichsguard up too now. Handgunners, I don't really think we're going to need them, but we'll move them up too, just in case. The Emperor's up and is into the back of these halberdiers, which is good.
See to it. Sigma demands.
Swordsman unit is losing up here, but Lutherhus will hopefully start to turn the tide a bit here in a second. So we have a swordsman unit in. Let's push other swords in. And these three too, and hopefully they'll all go through the... No, look! Oh, they are going through the front gate. Or are they? No, two of them have decided not to. They've decided to go round the ladders instead. That's what I was talking about, pretty much. And they're still doing it. Right, you guys don't get to participate. No loot for you. Alright, let's put this crossbow unit up onto the walls. Is it safe? It's not really safe to move anyone else yet. Maybe we can get a crossbow unit up here. In fact, let's get two. Like that. So the Emperor's seen to this halberdier unit in conjunction with these swordsmen. We've only lost 10 men, is that right? That's really impressive. Okay, we're going to have to countercharge these, but it's not letting me. I have no idea why. Please countercharge them. Oh fuck. So get this unit to countercharge when they can. I'm not really sure what's happening there. It's probably because they're getting stuck in the walls or in the gatehouse. Right. Then let's also move our Reichsguard in at speed. Get a flank on them. Crossbows are finally starting to come over the walls, which should help. Can our Pyromancer do anything? Silly to call him a Pyromancer or Bright Wizard. I think he hit the side of a building there. Good. Good use of our magic reserves. You know, I'm going to have to throw these other swords units in just to keep these guys busy for now. I can't, there's not enough room to get round them. It's pretty even, it's just a meat grinder, but here come our Reichsguard now, finally. Just the men we're looking for. So, there is a feature in this where you can trace where you want your troops to... Wow, oh! That's not really what I was expecting, but okay, let's try that. Will that work? I hope so. Let's send these swordsmen. Can I get them up through the tower? And our Reichsguard really should be running. Although they're gonna... Well, never mind, they just knocked that stall down. That's one way to approach obstacles, I suppose. These balloons are being sent up as I go past as well. They're coming! The shiny bastards are coming quick. Look, there's a little one. That's so dumb. Funny though, but dumb. How are we doing everywhere else? Our swords can run into this. So we've done fine. We could have done a fair bit better, I guess, by completely micromanaging and not micromanaging. And not gawking at individual units and what they were doing, but that takes all the fun out of it, I think. Please don't hit the side this time. You bollocks. You need to work on your aim. Okay. Oh, we didn't even need the Reichsguard in the end. No mind the silly wee balloon is going to save you now, lads. This city's mine. Ah, here come the Reichsguard, lads. You're too late. That was good though. For all the flaws in this game, it's still fun. You know, don't mistake me that it's not fun to play. It just could be better. Anyway, I'll cut it here. I don't know. Well, I don't really want. We're just killing off not innocent people, but soldiers that have thrown down their weapons at this point. So let's stop massacring them. I'll see you guys back on the campaign map in a second. Just like Grunberg a few episodes ago, we have to make a choice now as to what we want to do with Marienburg now that we've conquered it. And ordinarily, I'd be going for the Occupy because it replenishes us a little bit, which means we're quicker to get back into the fight, and also causes the least instability and lasting public order penalties. But there's a really strange thing that I've noticed in this game, which is that before we besieged Marienburg, it was a level 3 settlement, I think, level 3 coastal city with a level 2 port, I think, and a livery and a dye maker. But now that I've occupied it, as soon as I click this button, and I have no idea why this happens, it's maybe a bug. If it's intended, I'd like to know why. But as soon as I click this to occupy, the settlement levels and buildings are going to change. And some of them just plain won't be there anymore. Others will be of a less level than they were before I besieged the settlement. And I don't see a reason why that's going to happen, especially not if I occupy it peacefully and don't loot. So, because that's going to happen, and only because that's going to happen, I'm going to loot and occupy, and probably use the extra money towards getting those buildings back that just magically disappear. Even though there's going to be some penalties, but hey, if the buildings are going to disappear anyway, what do I care?
The nation calls.
So yeah, as you can see, it's somehow magically gone to a level 2 settlement. The harbour has gone down a level, and the dye maker has gone down to a cinnabar mine. Chaos stirs. Storm clouds gather in the north. There are rumours that the barbarous tribes residing in the shadow of chaos have ceased striving against each other for the attention of the dark gods and are instead banding together. Suckling at the teat of chaos? Ugh. The hordes grow in strength. It seems only a matter of time before the dam breaks and a tide of ruin bursts forth to engulf the old world, corrupting or destroying all in its path. Marshal your strength, nurture the sinews of war, build your walls high, gather warriors to your banner and temper them in the crucible of battle, so that when the time comes, you may yet weather the storm. I'm getting some mixed messages here. Is it a storm we're expecting? A flood? There was a tit in there somewhere? I mean, none of it sounds good, really, does it? In the short term, though, all it means is that the Norscan tribes, the less armoured ones that basically like to build nothing but marauders and warhounds, are going to be getting a little bit more frisky in terms of raiding and attacking border settlements. But that is fairly unfortunate considering we're about to take a border settlement that's going to bring us into direct contact with them in all probability. This is also a form of early warning system, I guess, for the larger Chaos invasion that's yet to come. And in lieu of a proper Chaos faction with all of the 4 gods properly represented, what that essentially means is that we will eventually have to deal with huge hordes of heavily armoured, but still quite nondescript, sadomasochists who have an unhealthy interest in spikes and skulls. Karl Franz is also leveled up, so let's put a point into Imperial Pegasus, I think, purely because it'll allow us to unlock the Deathclaw mount later on when he hits rank 15. In the meantime, I'm not all that thrilled about having him prance around on a bloody Pegasus. I mean, it's not Disney's Hercules. Having said that, though, if the advisor in the game was voiced by Danny DeVito and looked like a 3-foot tall cedar, I think that would enhance things no end, personally. This is, of course, where I'd do a Danny DeVito impression for you, if I had one, which I don't. It's Hitler's car! There's some John Lovitz for you, a la Rat Race. Which isn't a good impression either, but there you go. Anyway, back to reality. All we're really doing this turn is rebalancing our armies, getting Olden into a position where he can go and attack this bottled up Marienburg army to the south, and sending France out through the port of Marienburg, across the River Reich and into Gorsel that way. It seems a bit silly that I can just sail France's army wherever I wanted to without having to construct a single boat for him. This does seem like another one of those areas where CA is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. I mean, naval battles in Total War games were never brilliant, unless you count Napoleon, but in a lot of the other games they weren't. So I don't personally have a problem with them taking them out of Warhammer, although I did read a few forum threads ages ago from people that had played the tabletop naval game that Games Workshop put out called... oh, what's it called? It's Man of War, it's called. It's something I've never played before, so it doesn't really bother me, but I don't see why removing naval battles should also automatically mean that you remove all concept of naval logistics from the game as well. I guess that seems like quite a trivial complaint, and in isolation it probably is, but let me sit you down and tell you a little anecdote about one of the best things that ever happened to me, one of the funniest things that ever happened to me in a Total War game. And while we're doing that, I'll give Olden a comparable amount of troops to this other army so they can stand and fight me, and let's attack him as well. So just after Shogun 2 had first come out, I was playing a co-op campaign with a mate of mine, and I was playing as the Oda. I think he was playing as the Takeda. But the important thing is that we tend to be quite coordinated and egalitarian when we play these things. And if one of us, for example, say was having to recruit more troops to defend specific parts of our borders, then the other one would be funneling them like some extra money to help with their extra unit upkeep and vice versa. But we also tend to have a petty wee rivalry about certain things, like who's in control of more provinces, or who the AI control factions are more afraid of based on the diplomatic menu and stuff like that. But the campaign map in Shogun 2 is a wee bit strange, because even though you're both playing the game cooperatively, obviously only one of you can take over Kyoto and become the Shogun, so there's like this big symbolic prize that only 1 out of 2 players in the game can actually take, and that became one of the main talking points for us throughout the campaign, like which one of us was gonna get it, who deserved it more, all that kind of thing. I mean, there's also some very unevenly distributed regions with certain raw resources that can have a big impact on your style of play or your income per turn. We were generally really good about balancing that out between us though, except for this one wee island that we just could not agree on. It's called Sado, and the reason I know that is because I went and looked it up. But the main thing about it's off like the northern coast of Honshu, and the main thing about it is its only redeeming feature in the game anyway is that it has a gold mine on it. Historically, that seems to have made it quite a sought after place because I think the Tokugawa shogunate took over control of it directly in the 17th century, sometime after Sekigahara, but it was also really important to us. And I don't really remember how we got to this position, but I do remember that I thought I deserved it, or it was my turn to get something, for whatever reason, and my mate eventually adopted the position that if I was going to get the gold island, then he would have to take Kyoto and in turn the shogunate after that, which is obviously a fucking terrible deal, let's face it. So at that point in time, I did what any decent right-minded individual would do when put in that kind of position, and I set about secretly grabbing the precious gold island of joy from right under his nose. And this is finally where the story becomes relevant to my initial point about naval logistics in Total War games. Because in order to take over that island, at the very least I'd have to assemble a full 20 stack army that was strong enough and well equipped enough to lay siege to the settlement and actually win the fight. More than that though, I'd also have to construct an entirely new fleet on the northern coast of Honshu to get the troops there safely, as well as to fend off a bunch of hostile fleets that were patrolling around the area too, because we'd reached a stage in the campaign where I think every other faction apart from us was loyal to the shogunate and hated us. And even though we were doing quite well in the campaign, I didn't have anywhere near enough disposable income to do all that quickly and without him noticing either. So again, I did what any sensible person would do in my place, and I recruited a full stack of about 10,000 crack samurai, infantry, cavalry, archers, matchlocks, cannons, the whole 9 yards, and I skimped a wee bit on the navy. And after about 4 or 5 turns of scraping them all together clandestinely without my mate noticing at all, I force marched them to the north coast as fast as I could get them there. Sashimonos fluttering in the breeze, Mempos glistening in the sun, and triumphantly I got them to get on board my newly constructed northern navy. Of course, in practice what that actually meant was stuffing thousands of men onto a tiny wee boat, just one Bokobaya. It was the single cheapest, crappiest boat that money could buy. And unfortunately, but in hindsight maybe not all that surprisingly, they didn't survive the crossing. I fucking wish I'd recorded it at the time, but I do have a screenshot of, I call it the wind boat posthumously, but I have a screenshot of it getting caught and sunk by a passing naval patrol with the loss of all hands. And that wasn't even the end of the saga actually, because even though the cat was out of the bag by then, I think that just made me more determined to make a second go of it. So by the time I'd built up another army and actually put a little bit of money into a kind of proper navy, when I got back to Sado to try it again, by then my mate had obviously knew I was coming to do it again. He fanned out all of his ships around the island, like in single ships all the way around it, trying to stop me desperately from being able to find a landing site, which I've got a screenshot of as well that I'll put up for you when I'm editing this. I mean, it's gotta be nearly 4 years since that happened, and it's still something that gets brought up between us every time he wants to have a go at me for being sneaky about something. But to me, I think it's also one of the best illustrations as to why Total War games have so much nuance to them sometimes and why they're so worth playing. And my point, and I hope this is illustrated, is that these little things, they don't seem like a lot when you take them in isolation, but you strip them out systematically and a lot of that nuance begins to go out the window too. And I hope that's not happening too much here.